Welcome back. So in this video, we're going to look at some additional design tools in InDesign. And what I'm going to do is create another additional 6th page. So we're dragging down a left-hand page and slotting it just after page 5. And on this page, we can go and experiment a bit. The first tool I want to show you is
on any shape we can create
a full color and an outline. Remember how we did the outline? We just clicked on the bottom one and we set the color. And that object gets that outline. But over your property bar, you can set the stroke to be thicker. So you can make it 6 point, 10 point.
It just increases the size of it.
Now underneath that is the type of stroke. So we can make it a dashed line, we can make it thin, thick, thin, we can make it dotted or even wavy. Because you can get some nice effects with that. But your strokes isn't limited to shapes. There's also the line tool. And with the line tool, we can drag straight lines. We can change the thickness of the line. And of course, the same thing applies. We can do a wavy line or a dotted line. Let's go back to the solid line and show you the stroke panel. Remember, if we can't find something, we go to window and there it is under stroke. Let's pull this out so that we can see it properly. So at the top, we can set the weight of that stroke, again the thickness. We can set the cap. So the cap is right down here. You see now we've got a rounded cap. This one is a straight cap and this one is extended beyond the node point. So we're gonna go with a straight one and just zoom back a bit. And underneath the type, you'll notice something new. We've got the start and the end point. So we can set this to an arrow. And we can set the other side maybe to a starting square. Now, you can further control the size of this arrow as well as of the square with the scale tool down here. So we can set the scale to 200% and we get a bigger arrow. And we can set the back one to 50%, make that a bit smaller. If we do have a line type that's dashed, for instance, we can even fill the gaps with any of our colors from our swatches panel. And we get this sort of effect. So you can see there's a lot of controls for strokes. And, these work very well, especially in infographics. Similar to the line tool, we also have this pencil tool. And on the fly out, there's the smooth tool and the eraser tool. And the pencil tool is a freeform tool. So we can just drag a line any way we want to, and it creates the line. And at the moment, we've got a full color. So it's trying to fill that shape. If we make it none, we see the line that we drew. And we can go, of course, to our outline, set it to a different color, and again, change the thickness, and even make it an arrow. Now the second one on that fly out is the smooth tool. And with the smooth tool, the more you go over this line and draw over the line, you'll see it smooths out your curve. And it just makes it more rounded instead of jaggedy. Alright, so let's select that and we'll delete that. Then I'm going to move over to our second page again. And you saw some of the effects earlier, but let's look at some of the other ones. If we select this text, let's just make it red for a moment, so that we can see this properly. And I'm going to delete that background color. Now, the drop shadow, for instance, is one you will know quite well. So they're all under Object, and then Effects, and there's my drop shadow. Every time you click on an effect, there's a preview over here with which you can see it on the actual object. But over on the right hand side, you see the settings for that specific effect. And now we can play around. We can maybe say over here, look, it's too dark. So So we make it 35%. And we change the distance from the object. And we change the X and Y offset. Look at that. We are changing that effect. So every effect has a number of settings applicable to them. And over on the left-hand side, you can see all the other effects. Now imagine we want to put in, let's say, a bevel. We click on bevel to tick it, but the settings here doesn't show for bevel. We need to click on bevel and emboss, and now we see the settings for the emboss. And we can make the size smaller over here, for instance, to change that bevel effect. We can change the angle and so on. So the thing to remember is when you click the effect, it doesn't immediately show you the settings for it. It just means it's been activated. So we still have to click on that actual effect name, and then we get all the settings for that effect. Right, so you can play around with those. They're quite useful, and especially in our more advanced chapter, we're going to use them quite extensively. Okay. Your next little bit of a design trick, we're going to do on page 6 again. And I'm going to do a text box. And we'll make some nice big text in there. And we'll make it a thick font, like in Act. And we can make this, let's make it 108. That's a bit big. Let's bring it down to 140. Good. Now at the moment it's still a text box. We can't use the text as a shape. In InDesign, however, you have the ability to take a text box and to create outlines from that text by going to type, then create outlines. So it becomes like a vector object. It becomes a shape that you can now use inside your design, or even if you wanted to, we could go and place an image inside that text and make it fit. Right, so that's how you would actually make text into an object that you can manipulate, and even that you can put an image into. Okay, then also a very important tool is the Pathfinder. Sometimes you want some interesting shapes, and the only way to get them is to cut one shape out of another. So in this case we have a blue circle, and let's make that circle red. I'm going to select both of them and then go to Window, Objects and Layout, Pathfinder. If you know programs like Illustrator, you would know this function quite well. And we're looking at these 5 functions over here. The first one, if you hold your mouse on it, it tells you what they do. The first one would combine the two into one shape using the front one's color. The second option would cut the one out of the other, almost like a cookie cutter. The third one will only give you the overlapping area. The fourth one will cut out the overlapping area. And the last one will cut the back out of the front. So, you know, you really don't have any excuse to come up with some cool, some cool shapes and things that you can use. Because these shapes as well, let's say we cut the front out of the back and we make this yellow. Those shapes can become text boxes. So if we cut in this box now, the text will flow in that strange shape we've created. Okay, that also makes for some interesting design ideas. Yeah, your second last one is the gradient tool. Now, gradients should be used subtly, but sometimes if you just, for instance, take a light blue to dark blue at the back of an ad, it just gives that bit of depth to your design. So to create a gradient, we go to Window, in Color, and we click Gradient, and it opens this little panel. Watch carefully. I'm clicking on the gradient. and it fills that shape with the gradient flowing from white to black. I can set the angle, so we can say 45 degrees, and it flows upwards. We can also make it a radial gradient, like that. But if you look at this little slider, there's two boxes or blocks. The one tells it it's white, and the other one tells it to flow to black. Now we can change that color. So we can click on any of the swatch colors and drag them and drop them right on it. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to get right onto it. There you'll see I missed it. Let's do it again.
Okay.
If you don't drop it right on it, don't worry. We can always move this one and get rid of that one. Now let's try and bring the blue on the other side. See how it snaps on the block? Now it flows from red to blue. And we're not limited to just two colors. We can now pull another color straight into this slider and another color. And we can build the gradient in the way we want to. So like I said, use them subtly. Like for instance, if you're doing a little ad, you could do the background, and let's drag these off, and we'll make this 90 degrees, and we'll flow from a darkish blue. Let's just take that from out. So we'll go from a blue to a light blue. You see how it just adds that bit of depth and just give it, a different look than just a static normal page. Okay. But that's your gradient. Now, you saw a lot of things in this first chapter, and it wasn't quite as exciting as we're going to get into in chapter 2 and 3. But it's imperative to understand the workings of these boxes, and especially manipulating them. So practice, make sure that you understand it, make sure that you can create the composition. I want you to really try and do this whole layout the way I did it, and practice it until you are ready for the next step. Now next and last video in chapter 1, I'm going to focus on publishing this little publication of ours online, so that you can send out a link and people